Where's my camera? How about them Giants? How about them Giants? How about them Giants?
How about them Giants? Giants fans, what is going on? Welcome to another episode of New York Giants Rush. Craig is out tonight. I am back filling. Sean is here as always. We have a special lineup tonight because we have Bobby Skinner on the show, and we're going to get right to it in just a minute here and start the interview. But first and foremost, Sean, we're back on this show for the first time in actually 4 months. You and I have not been on New York Giants Rush together since then.
Has it been that long? Holy cow, man. Time flies.
Time flies. Time flies when there's no football going on. It's absolutely boring out. Obviously, we've been doing the draft show on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
You know, and we've had you on that, of course, but not being on the main show, the only one that I've been on since the start of January was the one where we just kind of went on a giant Shane escapade when we were concerned that
that's right. I was not on that
Winston
one.
was the only quarterback we were going to sign.
Yeah. They left me off that one because I would be the one positive voice.
Yeah, you would have been the one telling us to not hold back. And, of course, 2 days later, they signed Russell Wilson. So
yeah, so it's all good. So,
yeah. Nothing to be concerned of.
Yeah, I was proven right again.
Yes, we're all very happy for you, Sean. Well, anyway, hey, listen, guys, we're just going to get right to it. We're going to bring Bobby Skinner in. Obviously, we know he's starting the Giants Nation podcast. We want to hear more from him. Obviously, one of the most listened to Giants podcasters out there. So, without further ado, Bobby Skinner, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. I just, as I, go into this new venture, I'm like, you know what? I need like the biggest and baddest internet, and this is the first time I'm testing it out. So, if there's any lag, I'm going to lose my mind on AT&T.
That's all good. Hopefully, it doesn't freeze, and then you lose your mind, and then like it runs without you realizing it, and then you're going nuts on camera.
I think you guys would probably hope for that, though. Those are, get a nice Bobby rant. Bobby, threatens to destroy AT&T, live on NY Giants Rush.
Change the mindset. I do agree with you.
Yeah.
I would rather that.
Yeah, I like it.
We might not get an AT&T sponsorship, but that's all right. I don't really know. I don't know where that stood anyway. So
yeah.
Well, Bobby,
how are you guys?
We're doing good, man. I mean, Sean, I don't want to speak for you. Obviously, it's just a lot up in the air with the Giants right now with the draft. Yeah. We have no idea what the hell they're going to do.
I love it.
It brings excitement, but at the same time, coming off a 3-14 season, I'm tired of hoping for the Giants to be better. I just want them to be better.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. It's like you said, coming off a really bad season, and then they keep the same GM and head coach around without that number 1 overall pick and a scorching, hot seat from the owner. It feels like a year, and this is the first time since I've at least been doing content where it feels like a year where everyone's kind of waiting for it to be over because, we were at the Senior Bowl and other places and people are like, how do they bring these guys back? Like, that's definitely not going to go well. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes, right? What they do with quarterback in the draft, because I'm pretty confident that they will be taking somebody, whether that's at pick 3 or on day 2, and what that looks like, what Russ and possibly Jameis look like, and maybe they can get through another year. But it is just a very weird spot for them where coming off that type of season, and maybe they love Shedeur Sanders, but it seems like they don't. But they'll go, they need to get a quarterback in their 4th year, drafting.
Well, what's interesting too, Bobby, is if you notice, like, and I know we're going to talk about it a little later, but just kind of a preview is they're not operating as a GM and a head coach as a hot seat, right? They're not making big splash moves. Like, they're bringing in solid guys, good contracts. So I wonder how much of that hot seat narrative is driven by the media, and because we know how Mara's words go, right? And people can blow those out of proportion. So I'm wondering how much that, kind of factors into maybe there's a little something behind it that we don't know about, and we're just going off kind of what Mara said because we know what Mara does, right?
Well, Mara didn't, he said the roster, he's not sure the roster is better than what it was 3 years ago. So Mara did make it off on them, and like he did, and there's a reason why he didn't speak at owners meetings because, all he did was make that tough for them. But if you look at the final result, I agree with you. The issue is we saw them go all out for a Matthew Stafford, right? And then Matthew Stafford took less money to stay with the Rams, and he was a bargaining chip. Right. We saw them, move on to what was viewed as the next best with Aaron Rodgers and wait on him.
Yeah.
And then they ended up, with what I do agree is the smart, reasonable move of getting a Russell Wilson and then Jameis Winston as a backup, right? Neither are costing very much money.
Yeah.
Russ is an upgrade at quarterback. He's obviously not your future or anything. He's not this Hail Mary type of move, but he does give you an upgrade at the position. So I agree with the results, but and we know that they tried to trade up to 1 with Cam Ward, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing.
Right.
I do think like they went in on Matthew Stafford, and they thought, not just like tested it out, like they believed that Matthew Stafford was going to be their quarterback, and it fell apart when Stafford took less money from the Rams, and the Rams called Stafford's bluff, and Stafford folded.
Yeah, and they tried to trade for him in season too, which is
Right.
that says a lot. Yeah, that says a lot right there too. So during, like, after they had benched Jones, they tried to go Stafford in season. Rams changed their mind. So I think Stafford would have been a very good fit with what Dable's doing, what he wants. But I also do think that Russell Wilson's a very good fit here as well, especially with, I know we're going to talk about some information that came out about kind of what hamstrung him a little bit. So
yeah, and that's kind of how I feel too. I mean, it's. First of all, I was actually kind of glad that like Rodgers and Russell Wilson became available in the first place, because back in December, it didn't really look like that was any sort of guarantee. I was a little surprised Pittsburgh actually did end up moving on from him. So at least they have somebody to hold down the fort. But again, the question is going to be, of course, what version of Russ are we going to get? Are we going to get the effective kind? And obviously he had, a rough season and a half really with Denver, which could be a system issue over there too. But no guarantees that we have quarterback greatness by any means with him.
Yeah, and that's where we'll see how this season goes, because you look at their free agency like, okay, it's smart with what they did, and Russ is an upgrade on paper, and Paulson Adebo gives them a cornerback 1, but they do have it's not just a tough schedule, but sometimes when there's upgrades made, one, we forget that other teams make upgrades as well. We don't account for injuries. But number 2 is upgrades aren't perfect, right? Like, yes, we have upgrades at key positions, but Russell Wilson's probably going to have some bad games, even if we had a great quarterbacks have bad games. Paulson Adebo, he was the free agent I wanted, right? Paulson Adebo lost games for the Saints last year with untimely penalties. Javon Holland, has had 1 interception over the last 2 years, and it was on a end of half Hail Mary. So there certainly has been upgrades, but I do think it's a team that still is very thin depth-wise, and that quarterback position, I mean, Russ is an upgrade, but what are we, what QB is he ranked in the NFL right now?
Yeah.
Well, I saw some the other day too that, like, when you look at his stats last year, like, he was extremely higher than what Aaron Rodgers did last year, which was interesting. And then I know I'll just kind of bring it up here now too, Spartan. Bob, you can give your thoughts as well. So I had heard last year during the season that Arthur Smith really hamstrung Russell Wilson and took away his ability to audible in their season because they wanted to be more run heavy. So I'm curious to see, because even when in Denver, like, his stats weren't as bad as people thought. But last year, up until like the end of the season, if he's got that ability to audible, I think that's a big difference. And he is a huge upgrade. Let's be realistic. He's a huge upgrade over what we had last year, right? So, and if he has that ability to not be hamstrung and not be able to audible out of plays, which I don't think Dable will do, I do think that's huge. And just what he brings to, like, our young receivers, like that excitement, right? You're right. Like, teams can upgrade, other teams can upgrade, but I think the vet presence of Russell Wilson is going to really uplift our players and bring out more from who we already have on the roster. You know what I mean?
Right. And like with the receivers, Neighbors is Neighbors. I think Slayton is the guy who gets the biggest upgrade there, right? We see, even like the little flash he got with Tyrod Taylor at the end of 2023, where it's like, okay, this is what Slayton's capable of. Again, not a number 1 alpha. Wandale, I think, gets hurt because of Russ's lack of, running the quick game, throwing over the middle of the field. Hyatt actually found the one quarterback in the league that I feel like does increase his value in Russell Wilson, because he's so vertically on the sideline oriented. So you get that there. It'll be interesting to see how the dynamic goes between Russell Wilson, Brian Dable offense, where Brian Dable likes to take care of the middle of the field as well too, and taking those shots over the middle of the field is something that he likes, while Russ doesn't. And I do think he'll have, like you said, that freedom to audible out of plays and look for what he wants.
Yeah.
If it doesn't go well, then I think Dable will pull back, and we've seen Dable have outbursts about certain stuff like that in the past. But I do agree where I think he'll have that freedom at least early on.
Yeah, and he throws a really catchable deep ball, which is going to help Slayton for sure. It's going to help Hyatt for sure. Now, the one thing I disagree a little bit. I do think Wandale is going to benefit because he's now going to have a quarterback that can throw with anticipation, but also lead him to take advantage of his skill set. So I do think that's going to benefit a little bit more. So I'm kind of curious, on that one to see how that plays out. I'm kind of higher because, again, with what Wandale's strengths are, we just didn't have a quarterback that could lead him or, to be able to use what he's really good at. So I'm curious to see how that goes for Wandale.
I feel like Wandale fit with what DJ did because of how it's because Wandale is just not a threat more than 10 yards down the field. He'll get like a 15-yard in here and there, but he's not a threat down the field at all. And you need to run quick game, and that's where Russ does it. Now, again, am I saying Daniel Jones really elevated Wandale? No. But I feel like this is just not a great fit with Wandale. Now, Wandale should have never been force-fed the way he was last year anyways. That was very frustrating. That was something we said early on. It's like, stop making him the focal point of third down. If they're double-teaming Malik Neighbors, go to Darius Slayton on third down more often than Wandale Robinson. So I don't think it's a good fit for Wandale. They'll be interesting to see what decisions they make on him, because he is up for an extension right now. They're not. We know Kayvon's not getting one this offseason. We know Neal's not. It'll be interesting to see what guys from that first draft class that they look to try and get a deal done with post draft. And I think Wandale could be that, but also I don't know if they're going to break the bank on him. But Wandale, I do think Wandale gets hurt by this, but it's also Wandale's limitations as a receiver that hold him back. It's not just quarterback fault as well.
Yeah, his high I know is an issue, but the thing that people don't know is he's actually faster. He's a 4.4 guy. So for whatever reason, and again, it was probably for Jones's security blanket, right? Because who else was there when Neighbors was covered? So yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be see who kind of benefits there for sure.
Yeah, I will say this too with Russ. I mean, there's actually two things I want to hit on. And we're talking about the wide receiver elevation. I'm actually really excited for Malik Neighbors. He made the Pro Bowl last year as a rookie with all those garbage quarterbacks that we went through, right? I'm excited to see him elevated by Russell Wilson and truly ascend into wide receiver greatness. Of course, that's what I hope for him. On top of that, the one thing that's really nice about Russell Wilson, and I am going to give Shane a little bit of props for this, is, if we don't really have a good year and we didn't draft a quarterback at 3, we'll get to that. I got to give Shane, at least we're kind of left in a good spot for the future. We're not with heavy bad contracts that are going to weigh us down. Like when you look back at what Gettleman did and really Reese's last couple years too, it's like, the Giants were left in a horrible situation for the next administration. I feel like looking at the season right now, that doesn't look like that's going to be the case.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that is a benefit to Shane is, even though now you don't because you have the Jones contract, but it's like no terrible contracts on the roster. Now again, that let some good players walk in the making of that with Xavier McKinney, Saquon, and then obviously giving Daniel Jones that contract. But you don't have these terrible contracts on the books. But the thing I'm excited about with Russ is, again, where do you rank him at quarterback? Where have the Giants been so bad at on offense over the years? But I'm saying specifically with explosives. They just can't. They couldn't create explosives. Even when Daniel Jones was playing well in 2022, they couldn't create explosives. And it was like, they only have one speed threat of Darius Slayton. So what is it? And then they add those weapons in 2023, and we see that even though the line struggled, Daniel Jones was to blame for a lot of that. Even in Denver, when Russ was at his worst, he was a top 5 deep thrower, right? And attempt rate and completion rate and passer rating. And that is what I'm excited for, is not because I'm going to say Russ is going to have this great season where he's this top 12 quarterback in the NFL, but I know that deep ball is going to lead to some good games where they're scoring 30, 31 points and 33 points. And that's the thing that I'm like the most looking forward with Russ, is the fact that they're going to create explosives. And if you create an explosive on a drive, it increases the rate of scoring like pretty marginally.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I would say that in my mind, Debs is a better offensive coordinator than Arthur Smith. Debs got guys open all the time, so I think Russell's going to hit open guys, and I'm excited because if we do a flea flicker and there's two guys open, one of them's going to get hit. So we're not gonna ignore two wide open guys in the flea flicker anymore. That's for sure.
Right.
And Bobby, I appreciate you bringing up a point. I mean, we're talking about the offense being so bad. One of the things, and Sean and I agree with this, and people in New York, within Giants Rush are kind of torn. I mean, we do get frustrated when people complain about Shane Bowen's defense, and I get it. We do get it. But I'm tired of the defense always kind of like taking a lot of heat when being 31st ranked in offense for the last 5 years has really been the downfall of our entire team. And it's like, until we find ways to score consistently in games, we're going to be a losing team.
Yeah, and again, it allows defense to be easier to be played when you have a team that scores points, right? You don't need perfect games. Like, you can make mistakes and have that. Now, again, I agree with you. Like Mayor's comments at the end of the year of like, is there anything you want to see? And it's like, well, I'm tired of defenses or offenses running up and down our field when, again, their offense was obviously the clear issue. So like, I like, that's kind of misguided. And if they scapegoat Shane Bowen, even though I don't like Shane Bowen, it's a kind of a weird feeling, and they ended up not. But I do still have – I'm not a Shane Bowen fan at the end of the day. I don't – he's not going to – it's impossible to call a good defense. He did it before in Tennessee. But I feel like he's a very much like, the players you have is what you get, right? You're not going to have these guys elevated to a ton, right? And whether it's – there's been different coordinators the Giants have had over the years on defense, Wink Martindale, Patrick Graham, very different types. But at least they I thought that they're like, all right, let's look at the matchup and let's try and do different things to take advantage and create turnovers and create pressure, right? And that's what Wink and Patrick Graham did. Where I do think, I hate bland is very much overused by fans when they just don't like something. It's like, oh, this is bland. This is a bland play calling. But I do view Bowen that way. But if this offense can score points, and let's say that they do draft Abdul Carter at pick 3, which is what I want. Well, now you're letting Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau and Abdul Carter and Dexter Lawrence and maybe even a defensive tackle in the second round. Now you're letting them pin their ears back, right? And Shane Bowen, the one thing he does like to do is stunt guys up front. Now it'll let you just stunt guys up front a little more often and play with your ears pinned back. And teams aren't running the ball as well and taking advantage of what I think is a bad run defense at the moment. Then, like you said, then he doesn't need to call the best defensive game plan in the world. If they're getting 4 sacks a game, they're going to get enough stops where if the offense can just be above average, they can win games.
Yeah. Well, and that pass rush was really good to start, and then I think with the injuries and then the offense was so bad, like, you're leading the league in sacks at one point, and then they led the league for the entire season with sacks per game. So I think that, again, going back to the offense, that's going to help keep that defense rested. It's going to keep those pass rushers, rested, and they're going to be get after a little bit more. So, yeah, I think he's a little more passive, but, we had Micah McFadden on last week, and he talked about that, he does have those blitzes in the back pocket. And I think at one point last year, he was blitzing at like 38% of the time, which isn't bad. But we went from a D coordinator who's blitzing like 70% of the time. So it doesn't seem like a lot. So it's interesting. It's got to get those guys up front. That front 4, will help with the run for sure.
I got to tell you too, Bobby. I mean, look, we've talked about how the Giants having an identity, missing an identity. The closest thing the Giants do have right now to an identity is kind of that state in which you just mentioned, right? We already had a good pass rush when healthy. We actually had more sacks last year than the Eagles, which I thought was mind-blowing for the regular season standard. Imagine you get Abdul Carter. We can leeway this right into the draft, but you get Abdul Carter and you get a D tackle at 2. Although we probably could. We still need a long-term franchise quarterback. Like, I'd be very excited to watch that defense play. I don't care who the defensive coordinator is. If you got Dexter Lawrence and Abdul Carter on a line, and then you add those other guys, like I'm gonna be excited to watch that, right? You put Abdul Carter on, a defense called by me, and I'm going to be excited to watch that player. Dexter Lawrence going to be able to watch that player. So that does give me excitement. And then you add the upgrades, right? And again, Paulson Adebo is not perfect. He gives up quite a bit of yards. He has penalties, but he creates turnovers, right? And if quarterbacks
And this is where I want to put more on Shane Bowen and not just be okay with him calling a bland defense, because now you have a Javon Holland, Tyler Nubin hopefully can take a step. We at least know he's a high IQ player. You can do different things with him. He's versatile. And then you have a Paulson Adebo who creates turnovers. Cheat with your secondary when you have a pass rush like that, right? A lot to set the coverage up where Adebo can cheat and take chances, right? You don't just play man coverage and get interceptions. You have to take chances, and to take chances, you have to know where your help is, and you got to throw different looks at offenses and try and confuse quarterbacks. So that's where I want more on Shane Bowen, because do we need Shane Bowen if they get Abdul Carter to call up a great scheme for the pass rush to be good? Absolutely not. You don't need anybody to do that. But where you can take it to from good to really good or whatever to whatever is throw different looks with the coverage. You have two versatile safeties. Be versatile with them. Don't be just simple one plays high, one plays low, and we switch which one does that role. So that's where my view is for the defense, right? And that's where how I'll view Shane Bowen. What do you do with the secondary? Because I thought last year I chart every single defensive play and every single coverage, and it was very simple. It was too high safety most of the time, which played from a light box. We rotate one safety down at the snap, play cover one, cover three. Pretty basic. I mean, that's, college level, high school level offenses. So that's where my challenge for Shane Bowen would be. Do different things with the secondary because you have the pieces to do it now.
Yeah. And I also think that, my personal opinion that will help too is the two new cornerback coaches we added, because I do think that these guys are going to turn around for the ball and they're going to teach that. I think that was something that Henderson thought was, hey, just go after the guy, knock it down, don't turn around, just go for there. Because if you look under Wink, like a lot of the interceptions were guys coming to the ball. They weren't where they were trailing and making interceptions. So I think that's where that was a little deceiving. So I'm curious because Adebo absolutely knows how to turn around. Holland knows how to turn around. And I think he'll be able to make Nubin better, because I think that's where Nubin lacked, is having Pinnock back there last year, where he really wasn't that vet that could up his game as a rookie in taking angles and going after interceptions. So I'm curious with that as well. So I do agree we need a little bit more from that secondary, Bobby, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, and then, I think with Shane Bowen, it's like, when I watch it, did I think that he was scheming up crafty? Did I think that it was like an advantage to our defense? It was like one of those things where I felt so-and-so about that. But what I do feel confident with him is that he wouldn't be necessarily like one of those coordinators that, we had one in 2009, one and done, Bill Sheridan, where he took what was an elite defense the year before, and we gave up 40 points 5 times in one season, right? And we went to just complete garbage. I do think that if he had good talent like that, we would have a good defense. Like, I wouldn't be concerned that it's that poor. But I'm totally with you, Bobby. Like, there's things that I want to see out of the defense next year that they didn't do last year. There's definitely room for improvement.
And we haven't even talked about the run defense. If your run defense is an issue, don't play from some of the most light boxes in the NFL, which Bowen did, until everyone got hurt in the end of the year and he started getting a little more aggressive with the run defense. Like, that was an issue. Like, there's different ways to stop the run. And you saw when everyone got injured last year. Think of that Saints game. They went in and it was like, all right, Saints are just going to run all over them. No Dexter Lawrence, no Okereke. And they got aggressive to stop the run. And guess what they did in that game for the first time in a while? They stopped the run. So there's a lot of different ways that this defense can improve. I think play calling is a big one, but also you do need Jimmys and Joes. And they obviously added some with Adebo, Holland, and we'll see what they also add in the draft as well.
And maybe we could just segue right into the draft. I mean, Bob, you already said it, but, third overall pick. There's obviously a lot of back and forth. Looked early on like they were going to try to go quarterback, but as news has come out, we hear that it could be, it's probably Carter at 2, Hunter at 3. Now it sounds like it's Hunter at 2, Carter at 3. Well, what do you want the Giants to do with the pick?
I want Abdul Carter. Assuming Cam Ward is not available, which he's not. I want Abdul Carter. One, I think he's better at what he does than – I think he's a better pass rusher than Travis Hunter is at corner or wide receiver. Now, if Hunter can play both sides consistently at the NFL at that A level, where I think Carter is a A-plus pass rusher, then, yeah, I would take Travis Hunter. But I still have some worries about that, right? He's not a perfect player at corner. Wide receiver, I think it's pretty simple to see that he'd be good at that. But corner is what I think most people believe will be his primary position. So I just think Carter's better at that. And, you add in the fact that I love pass rushers, right? I value them, right? And pass rusher is a very much a draft early position. It's like quarterbacks, edge rushers, and offensive tackles. You don't really find those guys, the top guys, outside of the top half of the first round or the first round. It does happen. Obviously, we can find exceptions, but that's where you look at the all-pros and the Pro Bowl players. They come from the top of the draft at that position. So when you have a chance to get a guy like Abdul Carter, I'm taking that. But I'd be really happy with Travis Hunter. But long story short, I'm not a fan of Shedeur Sanders, right? I put out a 45-minute video on him explaining why. They're showing film on why. And I know everyone will talk about, the arm talent. He doesn't have the arm talent or the athleticism, which he doesn't. He's not great in those categories, but I do think he has an NFL arm. Like, it's as I watch him throw, I'm like, this is an NFL arm, even though there is times where it will die out and he's not able to put the correct zip on the ball. My issue is, even though he has his high completion percentage, I don't think he's as good at the post-snap processing and the anticipation as people make him out to be. I think we look at the completion percentage. We view a guy who's, projected to go in the top. Like, all right, what is he good at? I think what he's really good at is he's accurate. He doesn't miss throws. There's obviously examples of it, but he doesn't miss throws. But I watch a guy who, anytime we just talk about like Shane Bowen throwing different coverages and changing it, anytime that happened, he was late. And it's not just like, you don't know the read. I'm talking about like stuff that was directly, this is what you're supposed to be looking at, and he doesn't see it. And there's times where he would see it, but he'd see it late, and it would end up being incomplete or intercepted. Think of the BYU hole shot against, was it Kansas or Kansas State, where, he's got Hunter wide open down the seam, and it's like, why aren't you throwing this? Obviously it's a coverage disguise, but it should be a more simple one. And he's sits, pulls the trigger late. The ball doesn't have a bunch of velocity down, and the ball gets, taken out of Travis Hunter's hands, ripped out at the catch point. So that's the type of stuff that worries me. Not that he can't get better at that, but when you pair that with the lack of a great arm and a lack of great athleticism, what am I shooting for here? Right? Like, if we hit the realistic ceiling, I hate the word ceiling because anyone has most guys have a great ceiling, or at least a top 10 ceiling. But I feel like the realistic ceiling is a guy who is consistently top 15. Like, I don't think we'll ever be looking at Shedeur Sanders and like, man, that's a top 8 to 10 quarterback consistently in the NFL. Even if he's someone who lasts a long time as a starter, when we do our QB rankings in the offseason, he'll be 13, 14. And again, I think that's if I'm being optimistic about it.
Yeah. Sean, you care to comment? I know we're higher on Sanders than a lot of people are, but we respect the dialogue here because, Craig is very much against him, and a lot of it comes from like the personality and the Deion stuff that we get a little bit sick of arguing. Obviously we don't want a headache, but if we suck, we're going to deal with headaches regardless. The headaches of losing. But yeah, Sean, go ahead, man. Comment on Sanders. Oh, we lost you. We lost the volume there.
There we go, Mike. You hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I think he's more athletic than people realize. He definitely runs a faster 40 than people realize. He's probably in that 4.65, 4.74, 4.73 range, which is fast enough to do what you need to do. I do think, like Bobby said, that the arm is stronger than people realize. He's throwing in a windy, field out there in Boulder. But where I do disagree is with the processing. And I think some of what he did later in the years, because he had 2 years. His first year at Colorado, that line was so bad. So bad. And then last year was better, but still was awful. And I also think that him not having that safety valve in a running game, safety valve in the tight end, he basically had Hunter. That was pretty much it. And Jimmy Horn.
But that's a pretty big though, with Travis Hunter.
It is. I
feel like we're having the same conversation. Like, when you're saying that, I agree. Like, again, a run game would help Travis or help Shedeur Sanders, right? If he had another great receiver, if the offensive line was better. Obviously, those things are true, but man, that seems like a lot of conversations that we had in the offseason of 2023 or 2021 about Daniel Jones. And that's my worry is like, it's like, yeah, if this was better. But you know what? Miami wasn't always perfect, and Washington State wasn't always perfect. And Cam Ward, like, still looked like that guy. Now, Shedeur Sanders did make plays for Colorado, but I look at a guy who's like the completion percentage, it doesn't impress me at all. One, it's a lot of screen stuff. I don't blame him for throwing screens with that offensive line and that run game. Wow. But again, I'm not going to praise. And how many times did I see like throw the ball away, get rid of the ball, and he takes a sack, right? Like, well, and that's
like, a good point though, because this is the one thing too with his athleticism. I think I'm very puzzled with Colorado as to why they seem to want him to keep the play alive so much. Whereas I feel like if he didn't see his first couple options, why not run to the sticks similar to like Russell Wilson, who's the king of this like early in his career, like 3rd and 4, go to the hash marks and get the first down. That's the one thing I'm a little puzzled with Sanders. If the pocket was kind of failing there, why didn't he run out? Like, who was telling him to do that?
Well, and he runs backwards too. Like Jalen Milroe, does he have great pocket presence? No, but what's something you notice about Jalen Milroe, he doesn't run out of the back of the pocket. He, at least when he doesn't see it, he runs forward. And that's not my issue with Shedeur. Like, oh, he's just not a great athlete. But he plays like he is a great athlete. And he can make a guy miss at it here and there. But in reality, he's not someone who should be running around the way that he does. And then you see it. He takes sacks, and it's not even just regular sacks. It's sacks that are like, man, it was 3rd down, and you just took your team out of field goal range. Like, you see those way too consistently. So, again, going through his film, I just kept on saying, where are the impressive plays? And what I didn't mean by that was, like, where's the big, crazy throws? Because he does throw the ball deep vertically well. But what I said is, where are the plays where I'm like, man, that's a great read? With Cam Ward, I see them. With Cam Ward, it's not just these flashy plays that you see. It's like, oh, they threw a different defensive look at him. They took away his 1st and 2nd read, and he quickly got to his 3rd read, or he moved a safety or with his shoulders, or moved a corner with his shoulders. I just don't see that with Shedeur. I see a guy who ran an offense pretty well, was accurate, took a lot of sacks, and got the ball to Travis Hunter pretty well.
So what's interesting is when you talk about Cam there, though, too, is when you watch it, if you watch him against really good defenses, he did struggle. He made some bad decisions. He'll turn the ball over. He'll fumble.
Oh, Cam's not perfect. Don't get me wrong.
And then I think with Shedeur, again, and I watched him at Jackson State too for the entire time he was there. And if the quality, and I know people bring up the BYU game, but let's be realistic, that D line was so much better. Like head and shoulders better than Colorado's offensive line. So that does factor in theirs too. So for me, it's okay. If I put Shedeur on a Miami, or if I put him on an LSU or an Alabama, what's he going to do there? And what he's really good at, he's good at throwing catchable ball. He's good at I do think he's good at reading defenses. That's my feeling. But again, if you surround him with the talent, and I get the Giants aren't going to be top talent, but if we're comparing quarterbacks in the draft and you put him on, like I said, in Alabama, I think you're going to see different, like with those receivers. Granted, Travis Hunter is amazing, but he's the only guy they really had. They didn't have a tight end he could throw to. Their 2nd and 3rd guys were okay, but I mean, they're going to go 4th and 5th round in the draft.
Sure, but we saw Mac Jones and Bryce Young be really good on those Alabama. Like, I'm not again, if you put him in a great situation, my argument is not that Shedeur's incapable, right? When you're accurate, you have an NFL arm, and he's, again, I think he doesn't read defenses that great, but he does seem like a smart player. He understands. He has the work ethic. He has the confidence. I'm by no means saying that Shedeur can't work out. My issue is that, like, I don't see anywhere near enough to be like, all right, that's the guy I want to pick 3.
Well, you're not saying he's going to suck. You're just saying that you think he's
I don't think he's going to be good, but what I'm saying is I'm just not betting on that, right? Because even if we hit what I think is, again, realistic ceiling, not ceiling, because anyone could. Ellerson Smith had a great ceiling, realistic ceiling. I just don't take – I don't think it's going to be someone that where I end the year and I'm like, man, I'm glad we have this quarterback compared to these, this quarterback that's viewed as 6th or 7th in the NFL, or against Justin Herbert or Dak Prescott. I just don't think you'll ever be saying that with Shedeur Sanders. I think he'll be, again, if you put him in a good situation, he'll look good. If you put him in the Giants situation of what it's been the last few years, I think he'd look really bad.
Let me ask you this. I mean, our thoughts aside, the news today is that the Shedeur Sanders is going to do a workout with the Giants. Where do you think the Giants building is at with it? Because my guess right now is that there's torn opinions within the building as to what to do at 3, because I feel like by now we would kind of have a sense of where they were leaning, and kind of feels like Carter, but I have this feeling there's people inside the building that, want Shedeur.
There is torn opinions, which is why I don't think we really know what you want. Like you said, it feels like all the smoke has been like Giants aren't going to take Shedeur at pick 3. And then this workout comes, and obviously you expect them to do their due diligence, but you also saw them. I mean, they sent everybody to Colorado's pro day, right? Like even Chris Mara, right? And like that doesn't make me feel good, right? No matter what you think about whoever they draft, it doesn't it does worry me that Chris Mara he's going to the Jackson Dart workouts and the Shedeur Sanders workouts, because the line we were fed 3 years ago when people were fed up of John Mara and Dave Gettleman is, Chris Mara doesn't do that much anymore. You don't have to worry about him. He just kind of does some scouting reports. Well, now he's back, and he is a big part of the process, right? I go to the Senior Bowl every year. First time seeing him there, and 5 years of doing that. You see, it's the first time I've seen him at quarterback pro days in some time, and that there's that opinion matters, even though it shouldn't matter. That opinion matters. So, like you said, I don't know what they're going to do at pick 3. I really don't. And I we'll see. Again, if it's Shedeur, then he's our quarterback, and we hope it works out. And we break down the film and we watch it. And when he scores touchdowns, we cheer. When he throws interceptions, we figure out if it was fully his fault, and if it was, we criticize. If it wasn't, we explain what happened. But I am very much wanting Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter at pick 3.
Sure. And let's say they do that. Let's say they go Carter or Travis at pick 3. What do you want the Giants doing with the mid-round picks? And do you like any of the day 2 quarterback options too?
This is the part of not wanting the quarterback at 3 where people come out with a gotcha, and it makes sense. What is the quarterback plan long term? Right? They eventually have to draft a quarterback. You can't be afraid. I understand that. The issue I think sometimes we have a hard time admitting is sometimes getting a quarterback has to do with luck, right? It's not just we put together a plan, right? Like again, when you get hired as a GM and you have a vision of like, hey, this is what we want to do as a run defense, this is what we want to do as a pass defense. If you're a good GM, you should be able to do that with the drafts and free agencies and the years that you have. With quarterback, if they won 3 games in 2023, they'd have a quarterback. But unfortunately, they won 3 games in a year where 4 other teams won 3 games and a quarterback class that didn't have the same players as last year. And I am not a believer in taking day 2 and day 3 QBs. I put out the tweet every year. It just doesn't work out. I think since 2016, the only 3 guys that work out are Dak, Jalen, and Brock Purdy. And all those guys went into really good situations. But again, they're good quarterbacks. I don't think anyone's saying they're top 5, but they're all good quarterbacks. If they were to take a chance on somebody, it would be Jalen Milroe in round 3. Not at pick 34, not taking up into the first. I feel like that would be lighting picks. That would be irresponsible. But at least with Jalen Milroe, he's talented. And he's really he's an elite runner. He has a big arm. I don't think he'll ever be good. Because I think if there was a good chance of him being good with that talent, there's no way he would get out of the first round. He'd be looked at as a top of the half of the first round player. The issue is he was a bad quarterback at Alabama. Only completed 20 passes twice and an offense that Michael Penix, played under, play caller wise. So if they're going to take a chance, Jalen Milroe. Like, is Tyler Shugg what I think is like the 3rd best QB in the class? Yeah, but I don't think Tyler Shugg is leading you to anything significant down the years, and it's not just because of his age. I'm not a Jackson Dart fan. I don't believe in him with that Ole Miss offense and just the late game meltdowns. Like, if you're playing in that offense, I feel like you got to be excellent to garner a pick. And unfortunately, when it mattered the most, he just melted down, whether it was Florida, LSU, even Kentucky. I don't like that. So the unfortunate answer is I don't think there's a good answer out there for quarterback. And I think that's why they went out and got not just Russ, but Jameis as well. So they had 2 legitimate quarterbacks on the roster.
Yeah. And Sean, I'll let you go after, but I'm with you. People talk about if we get Shedeur at 3, then we miss out on a generational talent. Yeah, and it's very well the case. But I actually also feel that way with the 34th pick to some degree. That if we get a flyer on a quarterback with that pick, we are missing out on potential good talent there, especially at the D tackle position, because that's stacked and that's a huge need for the Giants, which is a huge opportunity. And I would be a little remiss to lose that, or even if it's not a D tackle, one of the good running backs, or one of the other guys at the other positions, because like you said, the odds one of those quarterbacks works out is extremely low.
Yeah. Here's the thing, if NFL teams think a quarterback is going to be good, he goes in the first round. That is why that these day 2, day 3 quarterbacks work out, because even if you view a quarterback as I think he's like a second round player, when you put him on the big board, he's ranked this. But if I think he's going to be good, he's going to go in the first round. Which is why if the Giants really do think Shedeur Sanders is going to be good, don't mess around. Pick him at pick 3. Don't do this whole try to trade back up in the first round. Just take him and live with it. Because if it works out, if it works out like you think it will, awesome. If it doesn't, then you'll end up being gone. So that's where I'm at with that. Because again, if people believe a quarterback was going to be good, they just don't last to day 2. They don't go in the first round.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. Trading the whole trade back into the first for one of the quarterbacks. It's I think people are forgetting that's going to be pretty costly in its own right. If it's
right,
going from that 34th pick to really anything ahead of 25, that's going to be pretty expensive. That's not like a free, a dinky trade right there. Yeah, if you go to 29, okay, sure, it gets less and less. But if you trade from 34 to 20, that's expensive.
Right. Yeah. Again, I think, like you said, I think people they've forgotten that, like you said, it takes picks to trade up from pick 34 to pick 22 as well.
Yeah. If we were doing that, we'd be pissed if we didn't get at least, some serious compensation.
Right.
For that,
Exactly.
Sean, go ahead. Do you have something?
Yeah, well, here's what I'm going to be happy whether it's Shedeur, Carter, or Travis Hunter. The only thing I'll say is that that term generational gets thrown a lot, and to me, there's only one generational talent in this draft, and that's Travis Hunter, because he did what nobody ever did at the college level. Nobody even came close to what he did at the college level. Carter's great, but Micah Parsons, right? So he's not generational.
Yeah, he's not generational. No,
not at all, not at all. And I think that even if you pass on Carter, you got some guys in that later on or whatever that can be really good too, especially in the system. So, but again, whoever it's going to be, and listen, the Giants are Giants fans are linebacker fans, right? I got Taylor behind me; he's my guy, so I lean linebacker too, right? So
our Super Bowls are built off edge rushers, right? It's easy. It's
easy to go that way. I get it, but my feeling is we're not going to know who they want. We haven't known for 3 years who they want. So they're going to get a really good player at 3, in my opinion, regardless of who it is, because there's a lot of things that every player brings there. So I'm wondering how high they are on Hunter, because they saw him a lot. And at that workout, as we alluded to, the pro day, they had Bowen, they had everybody. So I think they were looking at both. And there is a part of me that feels like, okay, if Cleveland goes Carter, then there's a world where they might try to get Hunter and Sanders together. Whether or not they can do it, I don't know. But there is a part of me that thinks that, because I do think they are very high on both those guys. Whether they pull the trigger, I don't know on Sanders, because, again, we don't know, and we haven't known for 3 years. And I love that fact, by the way.
And we don't know the Giants know.
Yeah. So I'm good. We're going to get a really good player at 3. That's what I care about.
And then Bobby, look, I know you do a lot of draft analysis, and we argue between a few players really there with that 3rd pick. But who are some of the day 2 potential guys that you really like?
So there's a cluster of guys with that pick 34 that I'm looking at, and I'm at the point now, because I've been doing a lot of my O-line prep recently. Mm-hmm. Give me a combination, one of the 3: Josh Connerly, Gray Zabel, or Donovan Jackson, right? I would love to have any of those guys at pick 34 at the offensive line. Derek Harmon, is he someone that can fall there? Somebody's got every year, someone who we all view as a top 20 pick falls to that 2nd round and is there, right? Last year it was a guy like Cooper DeJean or Johnny Newton, right? I want that guy, whoever is, we view as that type of player, to fall to be that pick at 34. But I look at that trio of offensive linemen, the defensive tackle group. I know Amarian Hampton has kind of been thrown out there, someone that maybe fall. I think someone takes him, but he's a back that I would be willing to take at pick 34. But I just look at like the O-lineman and defensive tackle group. I just feel like there's going to be someone who meets best player available and is going to be a huge need, right? Offensive line and defensive line. They didn't draft any of them last year. It's a big need for the Giants. I just feel like that the best player available is somebody's got to leak through from that group, right? I don't think the corners that are, viewed in that day two are worthy of the pick 34. I think they're more like, let's see what we have at pick 65. Linebacker, I don't see that being it for the Giants. Wide receiver, I don't see that happening with, bringing back Darius Slayton and having Neighbors and Wandale. It's just like O-line and D-line feels like the two spots that somebody's got to get through there. And if not, then I guess maybe you get a really good running back or somebody that ends up leaking through the first round.
Yeah. And that's an element that I want them to do too. I mean, it's like, I feel another trench guy, but look, we were the 31st ranked offense. A lot of that fell on the quarterback. I would like to see them get, a running back that complements Tracy, and a wide receiver. Wouldn't mind it at all. I just, but it's tough because every year it's like, please just get the best player available. And then, I end up doing my mock drafts. And of course I do go for needs to some degree with the Giants. It's hard not to.
Yeah.
Well,
there's one
luckily
guy
with the Giants, everything has been a need for some time.
Yeah, it's hard to do BPA when you have so many needs, right? But I do think with having those 2 third-round picks that there is a way that we can get what we need in that third round, whether it's a running back. But the guy that I'm excited about that I think we can get in the second round, especially if we don't go Carter in the first, is, and I think he can be a difference maker right away. And they had him for a 30 visit, I think either yesterday or today, but Darius Alexander. That's a guy I want the Giants to take in that second round because Bobby, I know you saw him down at the Senior Bowl, and he dominated absolutely, and he made a name for himself. So that's a guy that I think has a huge ceiling. I think he can come in and put him next to Dex, and they're going to wreak havoc.
Yeah, quick first step. He's just able to find consistent wins. I wish he'd be a little better in the run game at his age, but like he's again that defensive, like you said, man, that defensive tackle group. There's guys that are there, and then Darius Alexander was someone they brought in for a 30 visit. And as we talk about the defensive tackle group, I do 4 mock drafts a year. I only did 3 this year because I got married, so I didn't feel like doing a pre-free agency one.
Congratulations!
Thank you. I know. I'm
slacking.
Slacking. I took 3 defensive tackles. Right, I took Derek Harmon in the second round. I took Aeneas Peebles from Virginia Tech in the 4th round. I took.
I keep getting him too. He's the one dude I keep going back to.
Yeah. So it's like I am every year on our draft day podcast. I do a monologue of like draft philosophies, and I'm kind of running out of philosophies to have to at least give 5 to 7 minutes straight on. I think what I'm going to do this year is giving examples of why the double dip at a position works. Don't get so stuck up on like, we already drafted this position, we need this, and looking at the years of the double dip working, whether it's Mark Andrews being drafted after Hayden Hurst with the Ravens, Tucker Kraft just a couple years ago by the Packers, Bobby Okereke being drafted after they drafted Darius Leonard in the second round. I just feel like the double dip works out, like draft into the strength. And if we want to talk about the draft being somewhat of a lottery and you're taking chances, well, if there's a strength in the draft, take multiple chances at that strength.
I agree. Somebody said there could be, 20 potential starter defensive tackles just in this draft alone. So I'm all in on that idea because, I think we certainly need at least one, but I'm not so convinced that the other D tackle spots solidified too in the standard 3-4 defense. I'm not.
They're not. I mean, I think Jeremiah Ledbetter is their second best defensive tackle right now, and that's a worrisome statement if they're not going to add more than one guy.
Are you not counting? What do you think? Are you counting Colson as a DN, not a D tackle from the Cowboys?
He's both, but if you're moving him inside, it's for like third down pass rush situation. So what I'm worried about is the run defense more so than the pass rush, anyways.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think Colson's going to be I think he's going to be I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. I think he's going to be a lot better than realize. Young ascending guy. So I think he'll help with that. But also, and Ledbetter's the one from the Jags, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's not bad, but I agree. They got to take a D tackle. But listen, with the D tackles they have in the draft, the running backs in the draft, if they go running back in the 3rd round or 4th round, I'm all right because we got to we got to improve that offense too, right? Like
Yeah.
we just can't be defensive heavy, right? In that draft, in my opinion, right? So
And that's why you don't get obsessed with position. Like
yeah,
like Jack Betch, right? I did my
Yep.
wide receiver preview that came out today. If he's there at pick 65, I don't give a damn that you re-sign Darius Slayton and Wandale Robinson's on this team. And it's like, what is the exact sign? Draft him. I think you'll be glad that you did.
Right.
And I don't think you'll look back in 2 years like, man, we didn't fill this need. I think you're going to look back in 2 years and like, damn, we got a stud and Jack Betch out of TCU.
And especially because when you get 2 stud wide receivers, I mean, you're starting. People talk about the Eagles last year, right? It's like, oh, that was a defense first team. It's like, hold up. They did have the 3rd ranked defense. They also had the 6th best offense, and having 2 dynamic wide receivers that are both very, very good enables the other one to ball out. And I would appreciate that from Malik.
Absolutely. And I think Jack Betch, specifically to Malik, they're like really close friends from their time at LSU too. So let's make our superstar happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's roll into just the 2025 expectations. So looking beyond the draft, one question that I want to ask you, Bobby, is they don't go quarterback at 3. They go 7 and 10. Do you retain Shane and Dable in that situation?
No, 7 and 10 after 4 years shouldn't be good enough, right? We look at the roster, what it is, and then 7 and 10 sounds good for what we think, and look at the schedule. But after 4 years, we shouldn't be looking at schedule and how it grew from year 3 to year 4. 7 and 10 should not be good enough for a GM. Now, if you said, they had a down year, they made the playoffs the first 2, the most previous 2 years, right? Because teams do have down years, but they had it, right? They were drafting. They won the first year. It was a great coaching job, but the roster wasn't really built by Shane. Good job on Shane by not, going crazy in free agency, but it wasn't a roster built by him outside the draft picks, and that class looks really bad from 2022. And then they were a team that was drafting 6th and then 3rd. So I don't think that a team that won exceeded expectations year 1, won a playoff game with a quarterback who's no longer here, and then having the 6th pick and then the 3rd pick and then being 7 and 10. I don't think that's good enough. And I'm not lowering my standards because John Mayer's lowered his.
Yeah, and I guess, and because the one major issue too is like, then they're going to draft the quarterback in 2026 if they're retained. And this is why I'm totally with you. Like, they will not have earned at the 3 losing seasons in a row the right to then draft their own quarterback, because then they'll probably not be very good again in 2026. And then you're just hoping that by 2027,
nobody has the right. No GM should have the right to do anything, earn the right. And this is,
right.
I talk about my monologue every year. Mine last year was like, well, if they don't draft a QB, they may not get that chance. Okay, you know how you earn the chance? You do what the 49ers did. They built a really damn good roster, and guess what? They drafted a QB. It didn't work out, but guess what? You know why they didn't get fired? Not because of patience from the owner, right? Yost is one of the most impatient owners in the NFL. Because they built a really damn good roster outside of that quarterback whip. So build a roster that allows you grace if you don't have that quarterback. And I think right now they haven't done either. You have to do one or the other. Get the really good quarterback, which is the hardest thing to do, or build a really good roster. And I feel like right now we're stuck with neither. So if at the end of next year, have a really good roster or have the franchise QB. If those things, if I don't feel that you've done either one of those, then I don't want you as a GM and head coach.
Yeah, and see, I'm a little different because I think the roster is better than what people give credit for. I do.
But it's not good though.
Well, I see. I do respectfully disagree. I do think it's good. I think if we had better quarterback play last year, we win 9 or 10 games, so 9 games easily.
But you say better quarterback play. What is like? Give me an example of what level of quarterback play?
If we had Russell Wilson on the team last year, we win 9 games.
I disagree strong. They won what, 3 games last year? You think I don't think he had 6 wins to that schedule.
Oh,
right. We can slate him in every 1-score loss and be like, if we got good quarterback play, but good quarterbacks have bad games, right? You can't just turn it like, we'll just good quarterback play. And even then, if you're saying with good quarterback play that they win 9 games, I don't think that's a great roster if good quarterback play wins you only 9 games.
Well, I'm saying compared to that, I mean, 9 games get you in the playoffs. I said at least 9, possibly 10. You look at they win that Saints game with better quarterback. They win the Bengals game with better quarterback play. They probably win both. I think they win both Dallas games with better quarterback play. And then Washington, one of those 2 Washington games, they win better quarterback.
Well, DJ played pretty good in the 2
easily.
Washington games. Like the Carolina one, I agree. But again, that's where I disagree is, yeah, with better quarterback play, they would have won more games, but they're not going to get good even with better quarterback play. You can't slate in good quarterback play for every single game unless you have a great quarterback, which Russ isn't.
Yeah. I mean, again, with what he did with that in Pittsburgh and then finding out that he got dismantled there. So that's the one thing. Again, I think it's a young roster that lack vets. We added some vets. Now, what they do this year, who knows? We know on paper things can change, but on paper they had a lot. They definitely upgraded. And again, I think they were just young and inexperienced with, again, they got rid of McKinnon, they got rid of Barkley. So lacking that vet leadership definitely hurt in some positions. Those injuries hurt in some, in some games too. So I'm excited to see what they do to the quarterback. I think it's a huge difference because there was
it is
1 or 2
if you get the quarterback,
right?
yes, but it's the hardest thing to do in sports is to get that quarterback.
Yeah.
And I will say this too. I mean, the one thing I do feel more confident in, even like the last couple of years, even though is that there seems to at least be like more serviceable players in positions across the board. But I feel like what we do need to see from the Giants is, guys like Tibbs, go out there and have like a Pro Bowl caliber year, right? Like it's not just about having serviceable guys throughout the field. I think we've done a decent job at that, but we need guys to become stars. And Bobby, I watched one of your episodes of the show that I will not mention, but you and Pennick brought that up, that, like we need more guys to be of that caliber. And Neighbors stepped up into it, but I still feel like we have a gap there to go. And
one of my favorite exercise in season when talking about Shane was like, all right, let's list the 10 the best players on the roster.
Yeah.
And how do we feel about those top 10 and how are those guys acquired? And that's like draft well, right? The first 2 classes look bad from Joe Shane. Year 3, it definitely looks like his best. Tracy's absolutely hit in round 5. Malik Neighbors, easy hit. Newbin, Phillips, and Theo Johnson got to be better than what they were last year, right? I thought Newbin and Phillips had solid rookie seasons, but a second-round safety and a third-round DB, we need more than a combined 1 interception and 1 pass breakup. Need more out of those guys because they'll go from they had nice rookie seasons the same way other guys did to now we're not happy with them. Theo Johnson came on along as he got playing. Be like you were those last few games throughout the whole season because early on he only had a handful of catches. Now again they were a very wide receiver heavy offense and he's a rookie tight end who probably shouldn't have been thrown into playing full time right away, and that's not his fault, but. And then again, whatever we get out of this class, get some guys that hit the ground running. Like you said, the top 10 players on the roster and comparing that to other teams, I feel like is a really good exercise. And then when you look at how they are acquired, how many were drafted? It's Malik Neighbors and Kayvon, and then you're kind of grasping at like Tyrone Tracy at somebody like that.
And that's the thing. Like we just need to see more solidified guys like JMS. Like I just wish he was a solidified starter.
And I love JMS coming out, right? Like I was a fan of that. It's just he hasn't. I think he'll be an average center in the league, but I want him to be above average. That's what I thought he'd be.
Yeah, I'm curious to see with what Priscilla does. Again, I think a lot of his coaching, like I not enough fans talk about that in my opinion. I mean, I don't think
it's all the same coaches though too.
Well, coming back, Brazil coming back, yes, but we had Bobby Johnson that first year for JMS. We had Jerome Henderson last year, which I think we saw the same issues with his secondary for the 4 years he was here. So I'm curious. I think that getting Manuel here, I think those guys will take another step, and I do think having a Debo and Howland will help those rookies, extend. I mean, to me, Phillips is unbelievable. Like he was great as a slot receiver. Did he make mistakes? Of course. But I think the coaching was a huge difference. Just like we saw the upgrade in the old line from Bobby Johnson to Carm Brasillo. So I am curious to see what these new coaches do because I think they have the proven track record that we need.
With Carm, I feel like did have the track record. With Manuel, I mean, we haven't even seen. He's never even coached. He's been a safeties coach with the Jets. So we'll see. And again, my challenge for the Giants this season is not with a quarterback. that secondary should be better. It should be a lot better now that they've added a Debo Holland. And Deonte Banks is talented. Tyler Newman's talented. Drew Phillips is talented. If that's a real deal secondary, like viewed as a top 10 group, then I'll be happy with Shane Bowen. If it's anything less than that, I feel like they're falling short of what they should be with what has been put in there with 2 big contracts, a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and a third-round pick.
Yeah, because I think they're top 8 last year. Well, I don't know after all the injuries and everything, but at one point I know they were like top 10 in the NFL with in the secondary against the pass. So I think, yeah, I agree. They should be a lot better this year too.
Well, and the other thing is too, I mean, we talk about Banks like the first round pick. Like I mean, it's not even. There's sometimes where our drafted players are like a little mildly disappointing, but they're still like fine players, right? I'll even put Thibs in that category. He's, I do like him. I do appreciate him. Of course, want him to be of the Pro Bowl caliber like we expected, but then there's just straight up busts. And Banks with the attitude stuff, with the, I know he's probably out of position. He was really meant for Wings defense, but still though, it's like, it's frustrating to have like a complete miss. We spent 4 months each offseason looking forward to the draft, and to look back at that draft class and kind of be like, damn, we're like, I'm feeling like a loss here. That sucks.
Yeah, you create your teams through the draft. Like, that's the reality. Obviously, free agency matters. Once you get that quarterback, it raises all boats. But need the drafts to be better, right? So I like the 2024 class. It's the one I like the most in the moment. I think it's the one that had the best rookie season. But I need picks 2, 3, and 4 to take steps up. They can't be just what they were as rookies and be happy with it. And sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't.
I hope what this shows is Shane perhaps and the whole administration is getting better at their job. And look, in any facet of life, you generally, get better as time goes on in your role. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for. Obviously things can rescind. I will say my biggest concern right now, Bobby, for the 2025 season is similar to what happened with Jones, where it's like, not if the Giants are good, like we got 11 games, or that'll be terrific. And it's not that, if we win 4 games, like, oh, that would suck. I'm worried if it's somewhere in the middle, like we miss playoffs and then we're on the fence about bringing Dable and Shane back. And then the Giant, Mara, who kind of had his standard lower, was like, well, we had a tough schedule. We had this, we had that, and then brings them back. That's probably what worries me the most.
Yeah. I think that if in that scenario that will happen, which, hey, I'd always rather win 7, 8 games compared to 4, 5.
Of course.
I'll never complain about, the idea, like, oh, they won so many games, their draft pick got lowered, whatever. Like, it's football. Some teams have to win games. Some teams have to lose games. You'll see where the draft pick lies. But that is a worry too. Is I don't trust John Mara. It's not even just Shane and Dale. I just don't trust John Mara. I think I think his football instincts have been proven to be bad throughout the years.
Yeah, so I want to backtrack to something you said earlier too, and Spartan, you can kind of speak to this as well. I'm curious if it's a positive sign that Chris Mara is out there, because we heard, and then Spartan, you shared this with me, that when Chris Mara was more involved, he was more football savvy than John was, and then when he got out of it, right, then that's when things kind of went.
I don't think a guy who skipped the day of the draft to go watch horses and is clearly not serious about this, like at least Tim McDonald's serious about it, right? You may not like his position. I don't think it's there, because it's not just that he's there. That's basically an extension of John, and you have you're taking his opinion more seriously than what it should be with him. So I think it's bad. I think they got close to trying to get him out of the building, and then I don't understand what happened this offseason to where he's just back involved in everything.
So here's what happened, Bobby. We've had a couple of the old school players on, and I wasn't really familiar with the background there between Chris and John, but off camera, and one of them especially, I got to be careful saying this on camera, but we didn't say the player. John doesn't get a lot of respect from a lot of the old school Giants players. He doesn't.
Correct.
We found out that Chris really does, because he was involved heavily with those 80s Giants teams. And what this player said was Chris became more allotted to the horses and everything like that as time went on. And his role is more of a figurehead. So I'm not too concerned overall. However, Bobby, just like you're saying,
It
like,
was a figurehead, but now he's again. He was a figurehead. Now it's gotten back again.
and that's what I wonder. Like, is he just there to? But like, regardless, he's like, even if he doesn't really have that much say, like, he's still saying something that could resonate in someone's brain, right? Like, if you were there on the field and you said something, like, it could resonate in someone's.
we always have to pay attention to what our boss's brother is saying a little more than whoever if is in that position. Right. And again, I don't think. Again, he was a figurehead role. I don't think he's going to the Senior Bowl and all these pro day times just because he fucking for the love of the game. I think he is back involved. He's shown before that he doesn't have this. Like he'd rather be doing something else. Again, think about us as nutcase Giants fans. We're not missing day 3 of the draft. Like I will not miss day 3 of the draft for my Giants show. Imagine the people that are in the building and part of that process and like, yeah, I'm gonna leave for this. That's craziness to me.
Yeah, I just I will say this: I wish Chris Mara was the CEO of the Giants over John Mara.
I can get down with that. I can get down with that.
Yeah, and I don't like Tim McDonald at all. I don't think he does a good job. And I'm wondering if John has Chris there because he doesn't trust Tim, and especially depending on where he's at and who they're looking at, especially at Colorado, in my opinion, I think he wanted to hear from Chris of what he thought of Shador and Dion and that whole thing, because I feel like he might trust Chris more than he trusts Tim, because I know I don't trust Tim at all.
The reality is he should be trusting Joe and shouldn't be worried about Chris and Tim and all
Agreed.
that.
Agreed.
I guess that's my biggest frustration with Mara is like, you know, I get wanting the family in the business, but put him in the finance department, put him in marketing, put him in game day experience, put him in the accounting team. Like, why would you put them in the front office of your organization and have them span multiple organizations that generally fail to identify talent? You know, that's what really drives me off the wall. And that's one of the big areas with Mara where I criticize his ownership. There's things I like. He's willing to spend every penny. He wants to win. There are owners that don't care and won't spend money. But the two big things is, one is just the dated approach to everything. I mean, he looks at MetLife, he's like, oh, state-of-the-art stadium, that's what we need. You know, but really like that family involvement with the talent, like the front office is just, that's mind-boggling to me. That's bad ownership.
Right. Fellas, I do got to run in a second.
Sure.
I got a family dinner. I do have one question. How was my internet?
Your internet was phenomenal. You're absolutely terrific.
Really good.
Bobby, got one last one for you. Giants Nation, tell us all about the podcast, man.
Yeah, you guys have come to know what, I try to do. It's very similar. Just trying to put in work, right? Put, interviews, draft profiles, breakdowns. We're going to be live streaming the whole draft, recapping the draft, just kind of putting in the same work and just under a new name. It's fun trying to grow something back from the ground up. So trying to grow all the Giants Nation socials and YouTube and everything and the podcast downloads. So it's been fun. And the support from Giants Nation, no pun intended, from, everyone, you guys having me on your show. It's been really cool to see.
Yeah.
I genuinely appreciate it. Like my family never really paid attention too much to like what I do. They're not big sports fans. Yeah. Now they're just locked in on everything, So it's been because they've seen the support that you guys have shown me, and it's been cool to see.
Well, real quick. I mean, Craig tells a story. He was walking through an airport somewhere, and he saw a Giants fan. He's talking. He's like, "Oh yeah, I actually host a podcast." He was talking about Rush, and the guy's like, "Oh yeah, I got to listen to you." Because the guy that I listen to is Bobby Skinner. Like, so you are, national brand, if you will, for Giants Nation. There's no doubt about that, man. We appreciate what you do. And again, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for coming on your Giants Rush tonight, brother.
Yeah, tell Craig and the rest of the guys I said hi. Appreciate you guys.
Will do, man. You enjoy your dinner. We'll let you off. Sean, stay on, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Bobby.
Awesome. Well, it was great having him on. Yeah. Sean, coming up here, man, on the draft. We've been talking about it for a while, but 10 days, we'll have answers.
Yeah, listen, I'm ready, because then you know what's going to happen, Spartan. The draft's going to get here, which we're all waiting for, and then it's going to start with everybody's going to complain about the draft picks. Like, we go from complaining who they're going to pick or who they might take to then the draft happens, like, oh, draft's here, thank God, and then we're going to hit the everybody complaining about the draft pick. So I'm ready.
Right. I am with you. Giants fans, thank you all for tuning in tonight. There were a lot of you that came in, and appreciate you all. So coming up, I will be live at the draft on draft night. I will be in Green Bay going live. At the same time, New York Giants Rush is hosting their draft show. I will be there Friday. and Craig. Sean, you have Friday with me?
I do, yeah.
Cool.
Me and you and I forget who the third is. Alex,
Yeah.
I think. Maybe.
And it should be Truth, Chris and Craig. Night one for the draft.
Yep.
So, Sean, was good being back with you, man. But
yeah, man, always a good time, always a good show, always get different perspectives. So I had, Craig wasn't here to debate with, but I was able to debate with somebody. So
yeah, absolutely. But Giants fans, thank you all so much for coming in here. Go Blue. Let's get the pick right.